Today's guest, the very first draft pick of the Edmonton Oilers, who would become team president, the man affectionately known as Vish, Kevin Lowe. Joe Tilley's Great Canadian Sports Show coming up. Today's guest was born in Lachute, Quebec. He was a defenseman. He was captain of the Quebec Rampart. The Oilers' first ever draft pick in 1979, played 1,254 games for the Oilers and Rangers over 19 NHL seasons. The Oilers' all-time leader in games played, winner of the King Clancy Memorial Award, a 7-time All-Star. He won 6 Stanley Cups. He is a member of the Hockey Hall of Fame. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the program, Kevin Lowe. Kevin, great to have you here, my friend.
Hey, it's my pleasure. My pleasure.
You know, we like to begin at the beginning, so we start at Lachute, Quebec, on a dairy farm, I believe you're raised. When did you realize that you were going to be a hockey player?
Well, I played my junior in the Quebec League for the Quebec Ramparts, and I think I started when the draft age was different back then, and so my first year junior would have been 17, and we weren't drafted till we were 19. So after my second year of junior, there was lots of talk. That's the first year the NHL came to Edmonton, and so you started seeing your name in the hockey news, and an agent started looking for me, and et cetera, et cetera. But you never really know, right? Even though you're the team's first pick and you get drafted to the NHL. I mean, I know this in hindsight, but I also knew it as a kid at the time that I'm still a long way from playing the NHL. There's a lot of work to do to actually make it in the NHL.
What was it about your play that made you a success? What made you a player that the Oilers would want to draft?
Yeah, good question. The Oilers' longtime scout, Barry Fraser, just passed away recently, and Barry scouted me. He also scouted pretty much the entire Oilers roster for 20 years, and I was a two-way defenseman in junior. That was an era where there was lots of goal scoring, and teams appeared to be most interested in, offensive guys who would put up a lot of points. But my game was, defense first. But my last year junior, I scored 86 points, which my old friend Dave Smith, who used to bug me all the time, he'd say, "Well, was that one of the years that the Quebec League played without goalies for me to get 86 points?" But got to Edmonton. There was lots of opportunity. The Oilers came from the WHA, entered the NHL, being the first pick. Obviously, gave me lots of opportunity, but it wasn't too long before. About a year later, when Paul Coffey came to the team, that quickly realized that probably offense wasn't going to be my game. If I was going to play the Oilers, and I'd have to focus on defense, and I like to think I did that well over 20 plus years.
Well, the Oilers certainly needed your defense, no doubt about that. So you lost your father when you were 13 years old, which must have been very difficult. Who were your mentors growing up, and how difficult was that for you?
I should start by saying I was actually born in Hawkesbury, Ontario, which is about 20 minutes from Lachute. But I changed after a few years in the NHL. I changed my birthplace to Lachute, Quebec, because I grew up in Lachute. I was born in the Hawkesbury Hospital, but spent my whole life in Lachute, and didn't actually grow up on a dairy farm. Family, we owned a dairy. A lot of people thought I grew up on a farm because the dairy actually had a farm, a barn right beside it. And but we made milk and ice cream and cheese, and we imported all the milk in from the farmers in the surrounding area and stuff. But we had a large family. I was the third. I'm the third youngest of, I think, 35 or 36 of my generation, and we were fortunate to have a lot of sports around the family, particularly hockey, and my dad and my uncles and the entire family was very instrumental in me growing up, or all of us growing up as hockey players. And when my dad did pass away when I was 13, my brother Kenny, who was 5 years older than I am, he was certainly a mentor and filled in a bit of that gap. And then I had an older cousin that his father had passed away similarly, and my dad and uncles had really taken him under their shoulder. So he did the same thing for me, and he played for St. Francis Xavier University hockey team for a lot of years with Pierre Paget, and so he had a lot of he played at a high level hockey. So Carmen Lowe was really instrumental in me moving forward after my dad passed in terms of being a hockey player.
You ended up with the Quebec Rampart, and you were the first English-speaking captain of the Rampart. How did you earn that distinction?
Yeah, I guess my play. Ron Brissett was a well-known coach in the Quebec League. He was a great man, a great junior coach, and played for Ron. He actually drafted me. And it was a real honor to become the captain. Martin Madden was another name in Quebec. Martin took over after Ron Brissett was recruited by the Shawinigan Cataracts to come in and try to fix that program. So my last year junior, I was actually captain for Martin Madden as general manager. And I throughout my minor playing days, I think I learned a lot of leadership. I know I learned a lot of leadership from my father and my family, and I wasn't. I have to say, we're talking about the mid to late '70s, where the PQ government was in power. Separatism was on everyone's, was a discussion topic, so having been the captain in Quebec at that time, I think I probably had to do more than the average person to be justified as captain, being an English-speaking person. But I have nothing but fond memories of my days in Quebec City. Love playing there. It's a shame that the Quebec never got an NHL team back, because I know that they had some of the staunchest hockey fans in the world.
What a great hockey town Quebec was, and you're right. I mean, if anybody deserves a franchise, it would be Quebec. So then you get drafted by the Oilers, thanks to Barry Fraser and his work, and it is the rookie who hits the score sheet when the Oilers play their first game at Old Chicago Stadium. Britt Callaghan is going to set you up. I think feeds cross ice. There you go.
That's
with the backhand, beats the legendary Tony Esposito. Wayne Gretzky, who also assisted on the play, grabbed the puck and handed it to you. Now, so here's your first NHL goal in your first NHL game. Where you're thinking, "Oh man, this is easy. I probably have a lot of these."
Yeah, that brings back a lot of memories. That what I remember about that play was, the Oilers came from the World Hockey Association. There was they lost in the finals the year before against Winnipeg. They obviously had Wayne, and they had a good nucleus of sort of middling aged players that still had lots of time to play in the NHL. And then a bunch of guys. You saw Lee Foglin, my longtime defense partner, in there. He was picked up in the expansion draft from the Buffalo Sabres, and Colin Campbell, the NHL executive. He was another player picked up in the expansion draft. So we had a lot of good mentors. But anyhow, we went into that season going, well, a lot of unknown for everyone. And of course, Chicago Stadium, October 10th, 1979. I mean, we were down 2-0 before we even knew what happened. And that building was so loud, and thought, oh my goodness, this could be a long season. That this is the NHL. I'm not sure we're quite. I know I'm not ready for this. I'm not sure we are as a team. And that goal made the game 2-1, and it was my reaction was, wow, we're in the game, we got a chance, kind of thing. And then of course you saw Wayne Gretzky pick up the puck, that so typical of Wayne. I didn't even think about that. He brought it over and handed me the puck and said, hey, your first goal, and thanks. And he goes, no, that's the Oilers' first goal in the history of the NHL. That just shows you Wayne's, where his mindset is, that much further above than everyone else. But in terms of scoring a goal in the first game, I don't think for a second I thought I was going to fill the net, but it sure was nice. It's one of my really good memories in the game for sure.
Yeah, I think you guys ended up losing game 4-2, but you had a decent first season. You had a very young club, as you mentioned, with some nice pieces from the expansion draft, and I think I saw Dave Lumley on the ice there, if I'm not mistaken. But great talent, and you guys seemed to take care of each other both on and off the ice. Was that the case?
Yeah, we sure did. You see Lee Foglin in the middle there. We all point to him. We had great leadership, and we learned a lot of real positive traits. And I really feel for young players that join any sports franchise, but in our case, the NHL, that perhaps the leadership isn't what we had. We had guys like Al Hamilton. I mentioned Colin Campbell. BJ McDonald. Ron Chipperfield was our first captain, and just really, smart, classy people that respected the game and everything about it, and so it's a great place for young players. Wayne was still only 18. Mark Messier was 18. And then a couple of years later, Paul Coffey, Grant Fuhr, Glenn Anderson, those guys all came. We were a young group, so to have great leadership was essential. And of course, I didn't mention Glenn Sather. Glenn was really probably the ringleader in terms of all that stuff, in terms of supporting one another and in whatever we do on and off the ice. So that was when we look back and the success we had, you have to sort of start dig into why did it all happen. It was magic. It caught a little magic in the bottle, no question. But there was a lot of leaders, a lot of guys capable of being leaders. But we're happy to come in and earn our stripes the right way and gain the respect of the team and the organization to become leaders after the group of people that I'd mentioned previously.
Yeah, as a kid growing up in Edmonton, watching you guys play was a lot of fun. And back in the day, you were asked about Wayne Gretzky. This is a piece that ran at that time.
So he rarely lets his guard down. Do you ever hear what Brian Mulroney or President Reagan does away from his office? You never hear about that, just like you never hear what Wayne Gretzky does.
And he's gone. So 2 hours later, we got no birds coming over. We figured out why. We're duck hunting. He's got a goose call.
He doesn't let the general public to see that side of him. There's very few people to see that side of him.
So what was going on at the time? Obviously, young guys having some fun there. But what do you remember about that particular time? What sticks out when you see that clip?
Well, that's a piece. That's a documentary that we're all so fortunate to have of us back in those days, and we have Bob McEwen and his brother Terry and Mike Boland to thank for that. Bob had convinced Glenn Sather that this was a pretty special group, and they'd like to do the behind the scenes sort of NFL film style film on the Oilers. And I don't want to go on too much about it, but we had really the key there was the fact that Glenn endorsed it, and I remember him saying, "Hey, this is something you guys when you're much older than you are today, you're going to appreciate, that it's there." And of course, it was a great story. We lost the first year to Calgary when they were filming that, and they decided to come back, and then we won the Stanley Cup, so it had a good ending. But the key again was Bob McEwen and his brother Terry and Mike Boland were really they had been around pro sports themselves. They're very respectful. We had, they had earned our respect in terms of whatever they shot, that it wouldn't be used in a untoward fashion that would be embarrassing to anyone. It was just a great piece of hockey history. And but that particular night was a dinner. They said, "Hey, listen, you guys we hang out a lot together. How about we find your favorite restaurant, have them come in and cater it, give you guys a few beers and stuff, and we'll just film it and see what comes of it." So it was a pretty important piece of that documentary to really let people in, behind the scenes. And I was mentioning in my clip is that, particularly back then, I mean, nowadays, you pretty much see the players all the time, 24/7, social media, they're tweeting, they're on the news cycles all the time. Back then you didn't see any of that stuff. So we're proud to have been a part of that and been a real sort of, in hockey, pioneers to that type of footage.
You think about the players you had and the types of salaries that you guys would have to have today to keep all that stuff together. But the Oilers weren't exactly known as an extravagant club. I mean, Peter Pocklington didn't throw money around. But you had other opportunities to make money. And I remember, here, we have a little bit of a commercial you made. Here.
Dad, it's Kevin Lowe.
Yeah.
Stick sack?
Christmas. Stick sack, the personal hockey stick bag.
Okay, what do you think? Was that a lucrative deal for you, Kevin?
Oh yeah, I can't even remember, to be honest. But I did a lot of that stuff. Not necessarily endorsing hockey products, or sports products, but I wasn't afraid. First of all, being a professional hockey player, you train and you have your time traveling, et cetera, but you have a lot of downtime, and I just wanted to utilize that the best possible way. Chance to make a little extra money on the side, not very lucrative, I might add. I guess all relative, I suppose. But I was, in anything I did early in my career, I was preparing for life after hockey. I mean, I used to be asked, "What are you going to do when you're not a hockey player anymore?" I said, "Well, I'd like to do one of two things. I'd like to stay in the game if I can, and coaching, managing, scouting, and whatever on the hockey side. And if not, I'd definitely take a stab at being on the media side of the game, in broadcasting or whatever it might be." So, I worked at a radio station. I worked for the newspaper. I did sales in the summertime. And again, not that it was really necessary from a financial standpoint, but it was just taking advantage of the off time to be prepared for life after hockey, which I knew wouldn't last forever.
Right. The amount of money that the players are making today is not what it was when you guys were playing back then. A lot of guys had part-time jobs. That was a common thing. Now you despite scoring in your first game, you weren't exactly an offensive threat. 84 goals over 19 seasons, 431 points in 1,254 games, but 1,498 penalty minutes. You got the nickname Vish, which is short for vicious. Who started that? How did you get that?
Well, it really Paul Messier, Mark Messier, Paul Messier's Paul Messier, Mark Messier's brother. I got my hair cut one time, and he thought I looked like Sid Vicious, but there was and then that sort of he would call me Vish, and then I guess my play, off on the ice probably was indicative of that. I mean, I wasn't by no means was I a tough guy. That was a whole nother subset of players that played in the NHL. But I like to think that I played the game, hard, and I played for keeps, including in practice. I think we practiced really hard. We're never out there trying to hurt one another, but it was, I always thought that they had to play at a high level, even in practice, to be ready for the games. So, yeah, I look at some of those clips now and I go, I grew up as a kid. I just hated losing. So, whatever it took to keep the team in winning contention, whether it's to play an offensive game, obviously to play defensive game as my part, or to have to once in a while step it up, and I you don't see that as much anymore in the NHL, although it'd be nice to see once in a while, just when you don't see things going, when things aren't going well for a team, that that some guys step up and try to make a difference within the game to try to hey, listen, Wayne, if it wasn't Wayne or Mark or Yari or Paul or Andy or Fierzy standing on his head, it's not like I had to do it often, but every so often it was like, okay, you got to step up the game here. Things aren't going well, and that means to get a big hit or to be a little more aggressive to try to change the momentum in that particular game.
Yeah, I wouldn't say, you were dirty, not that much of a scrap or anything like that, but definitely played the game physical. And actually, we have a check from you, a bone-crushing check at the blue line right here. And this is during the All-Star game. Not a game where you're expected to see a lot of hits like that, but this is a doozy. I don't even know who that is you hit.
I think I might have tripped or something. No, I'm kidding. No, I listen. What the NHL, what the All-Star game has developed into is, I mean, I'm fully supportive of everything the NHL does, but the game is really disappointing to watch what it is today. I mean, luckily they're trying all these other things to make it interesting, and I can understand the players. I don't know why they should be worried about injury or why they don't play at a higher level. I mean, they do in practice, and that was more sort of my thinking. Going to the All-Star game, it's like, I'm not going to go there and try to be a fancy player, and I'm just going to play the game. Kind of what got me there, and in that era, there was guys. I remember there was one game that was amazing. It was like a regular season game. The Eastern Conference had guys like Rick Tocchet playing and Cam Neely and it was a heck of a hockey game. I finished it was like 7-6 or 8-7 or something. And, there was guys were playing hard to win the hockey game like they would do in practice, not like in the Stanley Cup playoffs against an opposition or even in the regular season. It was, I think you can still play at a competitive level without worrying about injury, but I'll just leave it at that. I think that's sort of will be my legacy, is that, if I was stepping on the ice, I was playing for keeps. I was playing to win.
Right. But at least they're playing. I think, the fact that they're playing 3-on-3 tournaments in the All-Star game, at least it opens it up for offense so you can see some skill, and that type of thing. But yeah, it was getting pretty weak there in terms of the effort you would see in the end of the game. So let's get back to you talked about 8-7 games in the All-Star, but the Oilers had a lot of 8-7 games. And after a couple of setbacks in the early years, you guys finally reached the promised line. What was it like to finally get a chance to lift that Stanley Cup for the first time?
Well, I'm asked often, my favorite memory, and of course it'll always be lifting the Stanley Cup for the first time. Even thinking about lifting it, the Islanders that was the third time we played them in the playoffs. We played them in 82 and then 83, then again 84. And of course they had won 4 cups in a row. They were of most recent times, the Tampa Bay Lightning. They were the ones, multi-talented, super disciplined, had everything, from A to Z in terms of being a champion. And so we learned from them greatly. We probably benefited from them by the time we played them in '84 to win. Not to take anything away from ourselves, of course, but they were pretty beat up. They had a long runway of playoff games. I mean, heck, they went something like 19 series without a defeat, and that takes its toll on players. But I grew up in the Montreal area. Lachutte's about an hour out of Montreal. Grew up watching the Canadiens hoist the Stanley Cup practically every spring, and those are you look at that and you go, well, that's something that happens in Hollywood would never happen for a person like me, and so when on May 19th, 1984. When Dave Lumley, you mentioned Dave earlier, scored an empty net goal for us to go up 5-2 with a matter of seconds left. That was the first moment where I actually thought to myself, in probably 5 or 10 minutes, I'm going to have a chance to get my hands on the Stanley Cup. And how amazing is that?
Yeah, that was pretty cool. I mean, I was, growing up in Edmonton, obviously an Oilers fan, and I got a chance to be there. I was covering. I just happened to be in Edmonton that weekend. I called Bill Tilley, and I was working at CFCN Lethbridge at the time. And I said, "Can I get a press pass for the game tonight?" He said, "Yeah, no problem." So I went down to, the Edmonton Coliseum, and it was an all access. I was in the press box in the dressing room afterwards. What an incredible experience! I got to drink champagne out of the Stanley Cup. While we were drinking beer, me and a few reporters were pouring beer in the Stanley Cup, and Randy Gray says, "Come here," reported out. He put champagne in it. What an experience! What a
classy guy.
I mean, that just he was such a classy guy. He was on the show not that long ago, but. What amazing. Did it feel like at the time? I mean, you guys had all that talent, and you finally got over. You finally taken care of the Islanders, who really were your Lex Luthor, right? Like, you got a chance to get past the Islanders and get to the promised land. Did it feel like this was never going to end?
No, I mean, to be honest, the feeling is you're just, by that time of the season, you're so beat up. I mean, you're obviously on cloud nine for a long period of time. It's such a great feeling. You was able to bring the cup home to Lachute for family and friends to see, and a lot of celebration, but you quickly learn that, okay, that's over. And, by the time August rolls around, that, what you want to do is you want to try to win again. You want to replicate that feeling. And I think that's what drove us, even for the group of us that were fortunate to win a sixth in New York, was, really our jobs were to start the season and try to win the Stanley Cup. And if you didn't win the cup, you felt like the season was a failure. Not every player that's played in the NHL has been so fortunate to be able to be in that mindset, to know, A, you got a chance, and B, what of course, the experience, what it feels like, and to be able to grasp it when you're in the playoffs, to be able to to grasp, get in that groove and win another cup. But your question was, did you feel like it was never going to end? And we never took it for granted. We wanted that feeling all the time, and we did the work and had the discipline to be able to achieve that.
84, 85, you do it again in 85, and then 86. The wheels fell off. The own goal by Steve Smith, and then the Sports Illustrated article came out about the drug use, alleged drug use, and everything else that was going on. And so, at that point, did you think? You couldn't wait to put that year in the rearview mirror?
Yeah. Listen, I'm not taking anything away from the Flames. They had a heck of a team throughout that era, but I really, to this day will say they beat us fair and square, no question. But we were much looser as a team that year in the playoffs, and we didn't have the kind of resolve and discipline that we had in the previous playoffs. And it ended up costing us. People talk about the unfortunate goal that lost the game, but really we should never have been in that position prior to that. And I'm not going to get into detail on things, but we were definitely not as rock solid disciplined as we had been in previous years. So it was a matter of, all right, that wasn't a lot of fun, and let's get back on the horse and get after it. And we had probably, although I think the '85 team was voted by the fans as the greatest team of all time, I really think the '87 team was, particularly after Glenn Saylor brought Kent Nielsen in and Rayo Ristolainen, and we that team was incredible, and we did go 7 games with the Flyers. I think that was a little bit, again, credit the Flyers, and Ron Hextall, of course, stood on his head, but we weren't. We were again sort of slipping a bit, I think, in that series of the kind of resolve and discipline that we'd showed in previous Cup years, but. We were able to hang in there, win the third Cup.
Yep, and then the fourth Cup in '88, and then after the fourth Cup, the Gretzky trade. How did that hit you when that trade was made? And what was that? What did it feel like when all that was coming down and at the end of the '88 season?
My memory of the whole thing was, it wasn't a shock as it was to everyone else. There was rumors, there were concerns. Wayne never mentioned anything to me, but guys talked to one another, and there was definitely contract concerns, and so I was actually in Newfoundland at Bob Cole's golf tournament on the day of the trade, actually playing in the same foursome as Marty McSorley. And Marty got the call off the course. No cell phones in those days. And it was a surreal time. It was, you knew something was going on. You didn't know what it was till sort of everyone got back to the clubhouse. And of course, people were in disbelief. For me, the hardest thing for me was, I really had a sense that when we did start the season, got to training camp, that, I got a sense that a lot of players were like, okay, why are we playing? And so I really felt it was my job to, in terms of a leader on the team after Wayne had left. Of course, Mess was still there, and Glenn Anderson, and a bunch of guys that won the Cups. Randy Gregg was still there. We still had good leadership, but the morale was down, and we had to really dig in, and particularly with some of the key players, because they felt that what the Oilers did was just wrong, and for me, it's business, right? Unless you're in there and know both sides of the story. Wayne appeared to be happy, or was happy, and in hindsight, it worked out well for everybody, I guess. But that winning that fifth Cup was a big thing for all of us. And again, it wasn't about proving anything about Wayne being there or not being there. It really acknowledged or pointed out to people that, Wayne is the greatest of all time, but you can't win that many championships without a lot of great players, and I think the fifth Cup really pointed that out to the naysayers.
Yeah, that's you lost the greatest player in the game, but you still have a heck of a team, and actually we had Grant Fuhr on last week, and he this is what he had to say about that team.
and we still had a great leader in Mess. And I think that's the other thing is we were spoiled over the years. We had Mess and Gretz as leaders. So when they traded Wayne, we still had Mess. So we still had probably one of the ultimate best leaders in the game. And it was a matter of we had to prove to people that we were still a good hockey team.
And that you did, right? And so then after 5 Stanley Cups in Edmonton, you win that 5th Stanley Cup. Did you feel like at that point you had proved something? Did you guys feel like you had proved something?
Within a year, like for me, once the season ended, it was over, and you put the work in the summer, and you had something to prove the next year. Like anybody that plays pro sports, if you're not ready, you got to be ready, twice as ready in the next season, because of course everybody wants to knock you off. So we went on to. Of course, we didn't win another cup in Edmonton, but we went to the semifinals the following years after the 90 Cup. We went to the semifinals in 91 and we went to the semifinals in 92. So there was a lot of pride in there. There was a lot of commitment, a lot of, we had, as Fierzy said, and he makes a good point, the leadership started from the early days, Ron Chipperfield, Lee Fogelin, into Wayne, into Mess, into myself. Craig McTavish was there by then, and it just the leadership and the commitment to be successful. Just it's like the Red Wings, I guess, in some respects. When Steve Yzerman was there, they won all those cups. Didn't matter who was wearing the jersey. Like the Montreal Canadiens in their heyday or heydays. You're playing, you're putting that jersey on. It really didn't matter who had it on. It just, it elevated you to want to play at a higher level.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I forgot about that. I think you lost to Chicago, Minnesota the next 2 years, but 2 teams that went to the Cup final, and that was still a pretty good team. And then, of course, the Rangers come along and they say, "Hey, we want some of that." So that formula. So they bring you and Messier in, and it works, and it clicks, and you get that next Stanley Cup with the Rangers. Tell us about that experience in Manhattan.
Well, of course, Mess was there for a couple of years prior to me. I want to say he left in the 91, 92. So maybe it was just the 1 year. I can't forget our history. But for me, it was time to leave Edmonton, although I probably would have stayed if Glenn Sather wanted to pay me more. But and he gave me 2 choices. I had to sit out for about 3 months of the season to sort of get moved eventually. And he actually came to me and said he had a deal with the Montreal Canadiens and he had a deal with New York Rangers. And so, of course, I picked the Rangers because Mess was there, Jeff Buchum was there, Adam Graves was there. And, unbeknownst to me, the Canadiens go on to win the Cup that particular year. So it looked like I made a mistake. And then we were fortunate to win the Cup the following year with the Rangers. But that's one of my, for sure, top 5 highlights of my career is that Cup. And mainly because of, for another, a lot of reasons to win another Cup, to win a Cup in Broadway. Rangers hadn't won in 54 years. But also, Mess, that for him to take his rightful place in being one of the greats of all time in the game. I mean, we all knew it playing with him. I think most of the league knew how good Messier was. But, I mean, a lot of players, and particularly Mark, took a back seat, not because he was forced to, but because I believe he wanted to when Wayne was here. I mean, Wayne, we all benefited from being in Wayne's presence and playing with him all those years. And really, it helped us become what we were. But we also knew how good Mark was. So for Mark to be able to do what he did in 90 with the Oilers and then to do it again in 94 with the Rangers, it was really special. I knew how badly he wanted it. I mean, I wanted just as bad because, as I said earlier, that's the goal every year to win the Cup. But it was real special to be able to do with him. And, of course, Glenn Anderson, another great friend and longtime Oiler teammate for the 3 of us to be able to win our 6th Cup and guys like Craig McTavish and Esa Tikkanen, Jeff Buchboom, and Adam Graves. So, 7 Oilers, former Oilers. I must mention Mike Hudson, who had played for the Oilers, hadn't won a cup, but Mike was on that team as well. So that was the group of 7 Oilers that helped the Rangers win the cup in '94.
Right, the Magnificent Seven, Oilers East. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So, now you talk about how playing with Mess, playing with Gretzky, playing with these guys made you better players. Do you think you would have been as good as you were without having played with these guys?
Doubtful. I mean, again, I tell a lot of people this. What we benefited from, people often ask me, who are the toughest players to play against? I'd say, well, Wayne Gretzky, Mark Messier, Yari Curry, Glenn Anderson, every day in practice. It elevated our game. You hear Marty McSorley, coming to the Oilers for the first time and realizing, I got a lot of work to do, but he put the work in, improved his skating, and he spent all kinds of time away from the game trying to improve his game. And there was a lot of guys like that. Kevin McClellan was another one. But their game elevated by playing with the Oilers. First of all, they had the belief that, hey, I can play at this level. I can play with these guys. I'm on the ice with them every day. But you're just naturally getting better being on the ice with them all the time. So to your question, who will ever know? It's a chicken and the egg question. Was Gretzky as great as he was? Because did he make the Oilers great, or did the Oilers help make him great? And I think it'll always be a combination of both.
Right. Yeah. And you had a lot of guys like yourself who really wanted to win, and you indicated that in practices it was no easy going because everybody there wanted to win. So you end up back in Edmonton, where you retire in 1998 with 1,037 regular season games, another 172 playoff games, both club records for the Oilers. You took a job as assistant coach right after you retired. Was that an easy transition for you to make?
Yeah, I was ready by then. When I came back from New York, I actually signed a deal. So I still had a little gas in the tank, I guess, at 37 years old. Actually, the Calgary Flames were trying to sign me, and I actually considered signing with the Flames. But after a couple of months of thinking about it in the offseason, I woke up one morning and thought, I can't play for the Flames. In the meantime, I think Glenn said, whatever had Glenn come around on that, I guess he figured he didn't want to see me playing in Calgary. So he decided to offer me a contract. But what he did say is, well, what do you want? And I said, well, I want to play, but what else do you want? I said, well, what do you mean? He says, well, what do you want to do after hockey? I said, well, I'd probably like to coach. He said, all right, well, if you come back, we'll give you a contract to coach. So I actually signed a 1-year contract to play with the Oilers and a 2-year contract to coach. Now, there was no job description in the coaching part, and there was no expectations. It was, my assumption of that deal was that I'd be given an opportunity to be one of, within the coaching staff and earn my stripes, apprentice along the way and learn about the game. And that particular year, when I did go back and play, the Oilers had made the playoffs for 4 years, and we made the playoffs, and I had a decent season. So Glenn extended it for another year, pushed my coaching back, and then the 97-98 year was my last year. I was ready for it. I'd played 19 years. I knew that my playing days were behind me. I was not one of those professional athletes that still thought I could play because, those last number of years, it was difficult just to be ready every day to play and try to play at a decent level. So I was ready to move on and really fortunate that, Glenn gave me that opportunity.
And then, then you became head coach. You're named head coach a year later. Now, did you enjoy that gig? It was pretty good. I mean, you made the playoffs in your only season as a head coach.
I loved it. And what happened was Glenn was general manager. And, of course, he made the move to New York. And I actually had I had an out in my contract. I wasn't, when I signed back with the Oilers, I really didn't know the ownership, and I wanted to make sure that if Glenn wasn't going to be there, then I had the choice to sort of be there or not. Cal Nichols was the chair and one of the chair of the Oilers. Was actually the group was called the Edmonton Investors Group, who kept the team in town, bought it from Peter Pocklington. Cal Nichols was the chair. He came to see me when Glenn was leaving, and they wanted me to stay, and they wanted me to offer me the general manager's job. And Craig McTavish was my assistant coach at the time, and I knew that he was more than ready to be a head coach. And everything just fell into place. In hindsight, only today, I never thought about it until in recent years. I did enjoy coaching. I really enjoyed that, and I wanted. It's not like I aspired to be a general manager, but my decision to become general manager at that time was really just about trying to keep the Oiler organization intact, and everything. Like I said, everything fell into place. Craig McTavish was there, ready to be a head coach. I had some good people in the organization that helped mentor me in terms of being a GM. So, I was just moving on with what I thought was the right move, and never regretted that at all. But I see guys that are my age or older coaching still to this day, and I'm thinking, wow, I wonder if I stayed coach, if I'd still be coaching. I did enjoy that part, and I think I did it well. I understood players. I was demanding, I think, as a coach, but certainly respectful, and probably wasn't afraid to tell the players. Wasn't afraid to communicate what I thought was necessary for them to hear. Only because almost like a father speaking to a son. Hey, listen, this is the way it is. There's no hidden agenda here. It's not like I dislike you. It's not like whatever. It just was more than willing to have that frank conversation with a player in terms of their game and how I saw their game relative to what they should be doing on the ice.
Well, as a guy who never played a day in the minors, was it hard for you as a general manager to send guys down?
It was, yeah. It really was. It's a tough league. Professional sports at the highest level, and regardless of what the sport is, it's when you get to the top of the pyramid, it's there's not a lot of room at the top, right? There's not a lot of jobs, and I even now I have a son who's still playing pro hockey. Had played a few games in the NHL, but played mostly in the American League. He's playing Europe now, and he put the time in. He's one of the hardest workers I've ever been around. Totally committed. He was the most conditioned player in the Oilers camp 2 years in a row, and they have a metric for that type of thing. But my point there is how many players are like that have tried to make it to the NHL, put the effort in, committed, good athletes, good players, and for whatever reason, it just doesn't work out. So, I always felt, as your question was it tough sending guys in the minors? And yeah, it was, because, that's their dream. But again, I always tried to emphasize, work ethic and commitment and the desire. If you have it, you'll find a way to get back to the NHL.
I got to ask you about your spat with Brian Burke. Okay, it was over the Dustin Penner offer sheet. Now Berkey lost his mind. He really went after you. He called you all kinds of. You were backed off pretty good. I like the patience you showed, but eventually, you called him an I think underachieving media junkie was what he was. Burke said he wanted to rent a barn and have a scrap. You and him duking it out. How close to that did it actually come?
Well, we never did see one another face to face, and we never did speak with one another. So, I'm not going to go into too much detail because I'd like to write a book one day. So I'll attribute a fair amount of that space in that book. But I will say this: it was kind of hilarious. I remember Dean Lombardi was the GM of the Kings at the time, and so this had been going on for some weeks or months actually, and the media were having a field day with it, which Berkey loved, of course, and because he did love being in the media, and so I'm talking with Dean Lombardi one day about just about what general managers talk about, what can we do, what are you looking for, et cetera, et cetera, and at some point Berkey's name comes up, and he says to me, he goes, that thing with you and Berkey, he said, that you guys, that's just a put on, right? You guys are you're just kind of like joking around. And I said to Dean, I said, like, no, Dean, I don't think so, at least not from my end. I mean, I think Berkey's pretty serious, but Dean was completely flabbergasted that sort of behavior was coming out of a couple of general managers. So, no, Gary Bettman put an end to all that. He reached out to Glenn Sather, and Glenn reached out to me. Interesting that he'd go to Glenn and not come to me directly. But anyhow, that's all water under the bridge, and it never did get to that. And I think it provided. Hey, listen, we're still talking about it today, so I guess it's it's one of those moments in NHL history that people remember.
You probably, I'm just going to guess that maybe if it had to come to that, you wouldn't have had any problem showing up at the barn.
And that's part of, like, Berkey has a different. Of course, Berkey and I were on good terms. It's been a long time. That's all in the past. But he has a different account to how all that started. He said to me, and he said publicly, that I challenged him, and I don't have no recollection of that. I don't know if I'd ever. Of course, I would never do that. So that's one of the disputes I have with him on terms of how things happen. But we were. I wouldn't say we're great friends, but we had a good respect for one another. I think he got his nose out of joint because he took me fishing one time, and he didn't think that I should poach any of his players. But the one thing I do remember is, hey, for us, I was just trying to do whatever we could to try to make the Oilers better. And my brother could be the other general manager. My mother could be the other general manager. I'd be doing the same thing. So he shouldn't have taken it personally.
Exactly. Yeah. Kevin Lowe likes to win. We know that for sure. You guys came close in 2006. So that was a good lot of fun. Now, you played with Wayne Gretzky and you drafted Connor McDavid. Which player would you rather have to start a franchise with? Here's Connor.
Well, yeah. I wasn't general manager when the Oilers drafted Connor, but I suspect if I was, I would have made that pick. He's an amazing player, and he's been so good for the game. He's been so good for the Oilers franchise, and you can see his game. It's evolving. Like, he's playing at another level this year, and I wouldn't be surprised if he has many more levels. Like those guys do it, and what they have is they have a desire to be the best, and in order to be the best, generally it's always nice if you have a cup or two on your resume. So that bodes well for the Oilers. Where they are right now is not that they're in a real comfortable position, but they're going to make the playoffs, my estimation, and I think with the experiences that they had in the last couple of years, they should be in a good position to challenge for it again. But the cups are a big thing. Wayne Gretzky said it to me a long time ago. By then he had won 3 scoring races, championships. He was the NHL MVP. Played in the All-Star game. All these accolades, individual accolades, and I remember him saying that none of that matters. If you want to be recognized as one of the greats, with Orr and Howe and Beliveau, Lafleur, those types of guys, you have to win the Stanley Cup, and so Wayne was driven to win the Stanley Cup and to lead, and I see that in Connor now. I think he's been a good leader all along, but his leadership on the ice, trying to within games. I mean, he's always tried to win games, but now he even takes it to another level in terms of being a little more physical and stuff, like he did last year in the playoffs. I thought the Oilers. I thought they became a different team when all of a sudden in the LA series, Connor became much more physical on the puck, and you could tell that he wanted to win. And obviously the other players followed his lead, and they ran up against a juggernaut in Colorado. But again, those are all learning moments for players like that, and I hope that he's fortunate enough to be able to win not just one cup, but cups before the end of his career.
It's been 30 years since the Canadian team has won the Stanley Cup. Why is it taking so long? And is it going to be the Oilers who break that streak, that lousy streak?
Yeah, well, the Canadians were the last in '93, the Montreal Canadiens, and lots of teams have got to the finals, and some have got to Game 7 like we did in '06. Calgary did in '05. Yeah, I mean, now there's many more American teams, so it's a combination of the odds are less than they were in 1984. There was only 21 teams in the NHL, and 7 of them were in Canada. Why is it? I have no idea. I think it's more coincidence than anything. Why have the Toronto Maple Leafs not won in 54 years? And why did the New York Rangers not win in 54 years? It's tough to win. And, let's hope we can end this, end this run of not winning, bringing the cup back to Canada. But I mean, the Americans, it's funny how they think it's, it's the Americans winning. Well, no, typically it's at least half their team, if not more, Canadians on that particular American team that's winning the Stanley Cup. So I don't get caught in that debate too much.
Yeah, that's true. It is very true. So a big couple of years for you. You were honored recently. First of all, a year ago, this past November, you had your number 4 race to the rafters at the Rogers Place Arena. Beautiful ceremony. What was it like to look up there and see your name up there with among the Oilers elite?
Yeah, I can't see a dream come true because you don't dream about those types of things. Really, the whole night was special. It's great having your longtime friends and teammates there sharing with you. I know a lot of them were happy. I mean, they knew my place with the great Oiler teams, and what I did, it wasn't always certainly not in point production or anything like that, but in terms of doing everything I can to help the team win. But what's most special is at that stage, I mean, I was 19 or 20 years being eligible to go in the Hall of Fame, and it took that long. Again, not that I was expecting it, but at that point, all my children were young adults. To have them there, my only regret is my best fan, my mother, had passed, so she wasn't there to recognize or to see it all. And my mom was, as you mentioned at the outset of this interview, that my dad passed away when I was 13, and I mentioned mentors, and I did mention my mom. I mean, for her to have a 13-year-old, my other 3 siblings were off at university and not living in Lachute, so it was my mom and I, and she kept me on the straight and narrow and drove me to the hockey games. But I mean, she was a good Canadian hockey mom. I remember when I phoned her up to say I was voted to playing the All-Star game before we won the Cup that year. And, I was so excited to call her and say, Mom, I'm going to the NHL All-Star game. I'm going to be playing the All-Star game. And she was like, oh, that's nice, dear. That's nice. And I'm like, Mom, like, that's a big thing. Like, why are you not? She goes, she says, I'll get really excited when you win the Stanley Cup someday. So I guess, maybe there's a subliminal messaging that drove me as an athlete. But I can't satisfy my mom unless I win a cup. So, and then, post-playing career into my management days. And, it was in the media that I was eligible for a lot of years. And of course, the Hall of Fame would come and go, and I never got elected. And she would say to me, phone me up and say, you're going to get in, mark my words, you'll get in there someday. And I was like, hey, Mom, like, it really doesn't matter to me. I'm just thrilled with what I was able to achieve in my career. I'll trade the cups in for the Hall of Fame any day. But as I said in my induction speech, I used to say that, and I might have lied a bit because it meant a lot to actually go in the Hall of Fame.
Well, the following week after having your banner raised, you were inducted into the Hall of Fame. And we do have a little bit of that speech that we'd like to run for you. Vic, if you can roll that.
What really was unbeatable, what made us unbeatable for a long time, was the preparation from our coaching staff, of which John Muckler and Ted Green led the way. I'm indebted to Lee Fogelin, my first defense partner and mentor for my first 8 years with the Oilers, and to Craig Muni for the next 7 years. Craig McTavish and Craig Simpson, best friends to this day. Along with Billy Moores and Charlie Huddy, we shared so many memories together in our management run and also a cup run in 2006. We came one game short of another cup. 7 would have really sounded nice. 6 is okay. To my fellow 5 cup winners with the Oilers, Charlie Huddy and Randy Gregg, it was an honor to have patrolled the blue line with you. And we all remember from time to time, it was very, very lonely back there. And also a special thank you to Neil Smith and the New York Rangers organization for bringing our group, the group of 7 former Oilers to Broadway to help end that 54-year Stanley Cup drought. Maybe the Leafs should get us. I just couldn't resist.
Yeah, of course not. Yeah, so wow, that was what a night! What a night! What a night! I was there. It was a lot of fun. Yeah. So, Kevin, go ahead. Finish that thought. Yeah.
No, I was just going to say it was fantastic night, but you could tell my voice was a little raspy, and it was not because I was out celebrating. I actually had a cold, and I remember meeting Gary Bettman down in the green room just before we went out there, and hadn't seen him a long time, and he came up to shake my hand. I said, Gary, I've got a cold, so I better not shake your hand. And he looks at me, you don't have COVID, do you? I said, no, I've tested. I don't have COVID. That was right in the middle of all that craziness. But it was a great memory, but a little frustrating that I could barely hear myself up there because I was so congested.
Oh man, it was awesome, Kevin. It was just beautiful. I know that your wife Karen Percy, 2-time Olympian. You're really proud of your family. You got 5 kids. You mentioned a hockey player who's playing in Europe now. You got a filmmaker in the brood. A great family, and you certainly deserve all the accolades. You were a great Oiler, a great player, and it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on, and great executive as well. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show.
Thanks very much. Appreciate you taking the time, and hopefully we can do it again sometime down the road after Connor McDavid wins his first Stanley Cup.
We'll have you on after Connor wins the cup, and we'll have you on when your book comes out. And okay, so the Leafs to the Oilers. Who's got the better shot this year? I want to say they're pretty close. I took a bit of a shot at the Leafs, but what a
historic organization, and and the fans are some of the best in hockey. The Oilers not dissimilar, the sort of the Western version of the Leafs, I suppose. But I see them, in a similar position, and I think they both have a good chance of winning the cup.
Be a great Stanley Cup final, wouldn't it? Oilers and Leafs. We'd be watching.
That would be incredible. Yeah, that would really upset the Americans.
Oh yeah. Who cares? All right. Listen, Kevin, thank you so much, and it's been a slice. Thank you, sir.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
More sports when we come back. Thanks, Kevin.
Addiction Rehab Toronto, Toronto's #1 alcohol and drug treatment center, saving lives, reuniting families. The only treatment center in the province to offer medical detox, treatment, sober living, and lifetime aftercare all in one place. Our unique and specialized programs are designed to equip our clients with the tools to successfully lead a life of dignity, respect, and purpose. Let us help save your life or your loved one's life. Call today for more information or to facilitate an intervention. 1-855-787-2424 or visit addictionrehabtoronto.ca. Joe Tilley Sports is brought to you by COSA, Central Ontario Standardbred Association, providing a united voice for harness horse people racing at Ontario tracks. Check out your benefits today at COSAonline.com and check out COSA TV on Facebook and YouTube for all the latest harness news and live action updates. Live racing year-round. Go to HPIBet.com for all your wagering options. Become a member today, and your first bet is free. That's HPIBet.com.
Visit moregolf.ca. You'll find everything a golfer could need, from balls, gloves, clubs, custom fitting opportunities, training gear, valuable accessories, and some great deals. Looking for that perfect gift idea for the golfer in your life? Go to moregolf.ca today.
In 1:27.3, 29-second speed in that third quarter, and it's Lily's.
Now, my COSA Swiss pick of the week. Last time I went with a long shot, Matt's MVP in Thursday's fourth race at Mohawk. She went off at 53-1. That never happened. Lily's last, the 9-5 favorite with Tyler Jones in the buggy, held off a late challenge from She's Beer League in 157-1. Patrick Hunt praised Lily's last and co-owns the filly. The 5-6 exacta returned $44.10. This week, I'm looking at Thursday night's third race at Mohawk, a filly and mare's trot. And I like the 6-horse, Barzy, who finished with a bang to pull it a victory last week at 9-1. I also like the 6, 7, 8 exacta and triacta bucks. For all the racing updates, visit COSA TV on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Go to hpibet.com for your wagering options.
This is the Excellent Sports Adventure, brought to you by Lycom.
It was a busy week for the Maple Leafs. Back-to-back dates. First home to the Red Wings, a power play. Morgan Riley to Austin Matthews. Big blast, stop, but the rebound squirts to Mitch Marner. Marner rips home his 15th of the season, his 500th career point. And Justin Hull headmans for Calle Yarncroc over to John Tavares. Johnny T had a pair. That was 3 goals in 2 games. He added another in the next game. Buzz buried the Wings 4-1. Next night, Lace at Philly. Marner beats Cross-Ace to Connor Timmins. His long-range wrister goes top shelf. Timmins' first NHL goal. Mitch with 3 helpers. Now shorthanded, Calle Yarncroc gets the puck back to Timothy Liljegren. Buries it. Buds flush Philly 6-2.
Yeah, it's been good. We still want to improve on some things of just bringing it every night, make sure it's the same consistency. But, I think we're happy with where we're at, and we're happy that we know we still got better, and we're in a good spot.
What is
a good young centerman there. Dubois wins that battle.
Canucks and Jets in Winnipeg. Home side on the board. Voracek, Pierre-Luc Dubois. Nick Ehlers get the puck to Kyle Connor in the slot. Connor's 3rd of the night, 20th of the season. Jets jolt the Nucks 7-4, their 5th straight win. The Toronto Six took their act in Montreal this weekend for a pair of games, and they swept them both. Katie Tabin gives to Brittany Howard. The Premier Federation's Player of the Week spots Emma Woods. Woods second of the game. Six break the force 3-2. Toronto improves to 9-1-2. What a fun tournament. What a fun team. It was an excellent event all around it. You know what? A perfect ending to the World Junior Hockey Championships. Overtime against a scrappy team from Czechia. Brant Clark ahead of Dylan Gunther. Over to Joshua Raw. Back to Gunther. Second of the night. Canada wins the thriller 3-2. Connor Bedard solidified his number one ranking in the Summers draft. Thomas Milic has earned a look from the NHL. Hey, let's do it again next year. It was one of the wildest games in franchise history. Raptors trailing the Bucks by 14 points with a minute to go, but the Dinos would rally. Gary Trent Jr. with terrific work down the stretch, hits a clutch triple with less than a second to go, ties it up. Unfortunately, the Bucks won it in overtime, but what a game. All right, next time out against the Knicks, the Reps, another rally from 16 down. Another good night for Trent. Tough triple, Junior with 27, but the rally falls 4 points short. They did manage to bounce a brutal Blazers side, but I'd say, hey, go for the draft pick, guys. Well, the Blue Jays have added another left-handed bat with a little bit of pop, signing Brandon Belt for 1 year at $9.3 million. The 34-year-old first baseman has spent his entire 12-year career with the Giants. He won a couple World Series titles. He is said to be an excellent clubhouse guy, but he's coming off right knee surgery. Could be a bargain find for the Blue Jays. A solid start to the 2023 season for the Toronto Rock. Rock rolled into Uniondale, where they hung a licking on the New York Rapids. Tom Schreiber scored twice, added 5 helpers. Here's a sweep behind the back feed for Stephen Keogh. Keogh had the Hattie as the visitors overcome a slow start on the way to crushing the Tides 15-7. The Rock are 2-2. They host Halifax on Saturday night. Time now for our shot of the week.
God damn it.
4!
It's Vicky up there. Their ball is rolling tracking towards the green. And there's 4, but look at that ball right beside it.
Today's environmental tip: plant a tree. Trees produce oxygen and improve air quality. Trees take in carbon dioxide and store harmful carbon. Trees prevent soil erosion and help lessen flooding. Trees lower temperature by providing shade and cooling water evaporation.
Rycom, passionate people who turn complicated business problems into simplified technology solutions for public and private sector real estate, properties, portfolios, and enterprise customers. Optimize and future-proof smart buildings from the ground up. The latest in fault locating, base building network design, managed services, cybersecurity, data analytics. Our fault detection will support all smart strategies, define projected outcomes for capital planning, and reduce environmental impact. Rycom, smart protection solutions. At Rycom, we're building a path to a smart and environmentally friendly future.
And we want to thank all the folks who make this show possible. These are friends, trusted business associates, and all-around great folks. We highly recommend them all. And thank you for your support of Canadian and local sports. A reminder, the show is available on iTunes, Spotify, Breaker, Radio Public, Google Podcasts, Pocket Cast, as well as the Spanglish Network, Zingo TV, and Buzz TV Live. Also, you want to check out our YouTube channel. Past shows are available, weekly sportscasts, all kinds of excellent, cool segments. Like and subscribe. It's free. Thanks once again to Kevin Lowe for dropping by the show. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.
Joe Tilley's Great Canadian Sports Show is brought to you by
Brian Gribben Insurance Planning, helping you solidify your financial future.
At BGIP, what we do that's unique in the marketplace is we show people how to spend and enjoy their money in the early years of retirement without the fear of running out. Also, we're able to do this without you having to change financial advisors. Please look us up at bgip.ca today. Let's book a 30-minute phone call to see how we can bring value to you and your family in your planning.
Call Brian today for all your retirement needs. We did. 905-686-5678.
Do you want to buy or sell a home? Could 31 years of real estate experience help you? Why not speak to an amazing team that loves to overpromise and overdeliver? Aldo has a tremendous team of experts on staff. They are committed to making your next real estate transaction smooth and comfortable. Call 416-GET-ALDO or visit getaldo.com.
MNP, a leading Canadian national accounting, tax, and business accounting firm. MNP proudly serves and responds to the need of their clients in the private, public, and nonprofit sectors. Through partner-led engagements, MNP provides a collaborative, cost-effective approach to do business and personal strategies to help people and organizations to succeed across the country and around the world. With local offices in Oshawa, Mississauga, Burlington, and more, their team is here to support you. Visit mnp.ca today to learn more.
Guests on Joe Tilley Sports receive a gift certificate from Classica Imports. Top of the line imported men's clothing. Check out the Classica Essential Collection now. Go to shopclassica.com.